Hello you guys, welcome to Books by Britt TV, and I'm your host Britt. And today I want to tell you guys some of my most favorite reads between my 9th and 12th grade years of high school. So the high school I went to during my 9th grade year was called Sale, and hands down it had the best library I have ever seen. And the library wasn't necessarily a huge library, but they had just so many different books, and the way they would rearrange the books every week was awesome, because it made you not go to the section that you were used to going to, or not going to the same author that you would normally go to. You know, they had all these cool books up front, and the librarians, you know, they would always talk to you and recommend like a good book to read, and it was just a really good library. They had so many different types of books, like so many different horror, mysteries, African American literature, self-help, autobiographies, goth, just all sorts of books. So here's my top 10, and in no particular order. I don't think, yeah, I do have a favorite book, that's a separate video, but this list is gonna be in no particular order. So the first one is Breathing Underwater by Alex Finn. The book was about this young boy who had whose father was abusive to him, and in turn he had anger issues. So he began dating this girl. I think her name was Kathy. The boy's name was Nick, I believe. But he began dating this girl who I believe went away to fat camp, and she came back and she looked good. But you know, as time went on between he and her, he began to get really abusive and controlling, and I believe he eventually like went to jail for beating her up at one point. But I remember reading that book in 9th grade. Really good book. Second one is, I actually read this book in 8th grade because the movie came out during my 8th grade year, but I read it again during my high school years, and it's one of my favorite reads during high school. It's actually called Their Eyes Were Watching God by Zora Neale Hurston, and it's about this young girl who grandmother catches her kissing another guy her age. So the grandmother, you know, is based in, I believe, like the late 1800s, early 1900s. So the grandmother doesn't want the girl to, you know, just become no anything. So she marries her off to a well-off older gentleman. But you know, she's unfulfilled, so she runs. She leaves her husband and runs off with this other guy who promises her adventure, which is what she was craving, because she's from this small town in Florida. And she stays with him for 20 years, and they build a town called Eatonville. But she's very unhappy. So when he dies, you know, I forget how old he was, but I believe she was like 36, 37 when he died. She meets this man named TK, and thus begins the adventurous life that she's always wanted to live. Very good book. They made a movie out of the book, starring Halle Berry and Michael Ealy. I believe it was produced by Oprah Winfrey, and the movie was really good. It did the book justice. And you know how us readers are about our books being turned into movies, but that movie really did the book justice. Rose Matter by Stephen King. This book was so good. It's about this the abused wife of a police officer. She leaves him one day. He doesn't, and you know, she leaves him without a clue one day, because he used to always beat on her, and he tracks her down by doing exactly what he figured she would do. And she buys this painting, I believe, from a pawn shop, and she's able to like communicate and go through the painting. It's so good. That book blew my mind. I had to read that book 3 times before I understood what was going on, because I believe I read it in 10th grade. Yeah, I read that book in 10th grade, but it was really good. The Bluest Eye by Toni Morrison. That book is so sad. That book is almost the same as, not almost the same, but it's reminiscent of Toni Morrison, The Color Purple, though The Bluest Eye came out before The Color Purple. I hope they never make a movie about this book. It was such a sad book. It's about this girl who's dark skinned. I believe her name is Piola or Piccola. I have the book in the room. It's Piola or Piccola, and she really longs for blue eyes. She's like the darkest everywhere she goes. People laughs at her, picks on her because she sleeps in the room with her dad, and so she sees, you know, they pick on her about seeing her dad naked, and about her mom being a maid for white people, and she has to share a room with her brother, and she's poor, and then, you know, she's abused by both of her parents. One day her father, it's a spoiler, sorry. One day her father rapes her, and, you know, it's just a really sad book. But I will always recommend that book because it was a very good book. I mean, I know people like Piola or Picola. I know people like her, but it's a really good book. I believe that was Toni Morrison's first novel, as a matter of fact, was The Bluest Eye. The next one is also a book by Toni Morrison. It's called Beloved, and it's about this young woman named Setha who escapes from slavery in Kentucky over to Ohio, and then her what would I call her? The people who own her tracks her down to Ohio and tries to take her back, but she tries to kill her kids to, you know, prevent them from going back to slavery. Is the base of it. And then one day, this young mysterious woman shows up on her doorstep with a scar matching the scar that she gave to one of her children she actually succeeded in killing, and says that her name is Beloved. And it's a really good book. Oprah Winfrey also did a movie on that book as well, and it didn't do too well at the movie theater during its run in theaters, but it was a really good book, and the movie, I mean, it was a really good movie, and the movie also did it justice to the book. Like, it was a really good movie, and the book was actually based on a true story of a lady. I believe her name was Margaret Ware, who escaped from slavery, and she went over into Ohio, and her owners tracked her down, and I believe she won a court case against them and stuff like that, but it was based on a true story, or inspired by a true story. Number 6, A Piece of Cake by Cupcake Brown. This book, I don't even know where to start with this book. It's a memoir, and the author, what happened was her mother, she was raised by her and her brother was raised by her mother and stepfather, but she never knew that the guy wasn't her stepfather, wasn't her real father, until her mother and he got a divorce. But then her mother dies, and her biological father comes to pick her up, but instead he takes her to like this group home or something like that. And, you know, she goes on a downward spiral. She gets hooked on drugs. She begins prostituting herself. The lady whose house she lives with is like a freaking dragon, a demon, and it was a really good book because in the end I believe she ended up getting clean, going to rehab, cleaning herself up, and then going on to law school and becoming a social worker. She either went to law school and became a social worker, or just finished college and became a social worker. Or maybe, I haven't read a book in a while. I believe she went to school to be a lawyer, but she majored in like family work. She always took on family work type of cases. The next book is A Child Called It by David Pelzer. That was a sad book. It was about child abuse. About this guy, his mother always beat on him more than any other kids. They lived in poverty. It's a very sad book, and I believe he wrote a book called, he did like 3 autobiographies, but I stopped reading his stuff. I'll be honest, his name David Pelzer. I stopped reading his stuff because I just started feeling like he was not being truthful and authentic at certain points. But I believe he wrote three books though, 3 autobiographies. But I do remember reading A Child Called It, and it was one of my favorite books in high school. So I have to say that. Feast of All Saints by Anne Rice. And now Anne Rice is like one of my favorite goth writers. Like, I love all her books, the Vampire series, just everything, the Christ series. I love all her books. Feast of All Saints was about the gens de couleur, or the free people of color living in New Orleans, and it's told from the point of view of this guy named Marcel. His mother is a free black woman, or a free mixed black woman, and his father is a white man. And so in turn, you know, of course he's free because children take the status of the mother. So he's free, and his father tells him that he's gonna send him to Paris one day to learn, you know, to go to university in Paris and, you know, promise him all these riches and stuff like that. But his father lies and wants him to become an apprentice to an undertaker. And I don't want to tell too much of the book. I would highly recommend you get that book. And they also made a movie out of that book as well, starring Robert Richard and Jennifer Field. And I would say this, I love this book, but the movie was better than the book. This is a rare case where the movie was actually better than the book. I don't know, I felt like it was a lot of writing, just a lot of style in the book that I just felt like I was, you know, it'd be like 2-3 pages of style. I don't know if that makes sense. And so I really feel like the movie was better than the book, because yeah, like it took me probably a month and a half to read that book, and it took my mom 2 weeks, and we're both pretty quick readers, pretty fast readers, and it took us both a little while to read that book because it was a little boring compared to her other works. The 9th one is Jubilee by Margaret Walker, and it is a Civil War saga, if you will, and it is about this young woman named Valerie, whose mother is an enslaved black woman living in Georgia, and her father is the owner or master of the plantation that she lives on. And the book starts with her mother passing away, and then it jumps ahead to her 5 years in the future, to her moving into the big house where her father and his wife and white family lives. And it covers the period before the Civil War, during the Civil War, and during Reconstruction. It's a really good book. Like, it's a really good book. And then the 10th book is the autobiography of Malcolm X by Malcolm X and Alex Haley. I love that book. Autobiography of Malcolm X. No, they can't really describe it too much, but it's a really good book. Like, the style of it was really good. I learned a lot about, Malcolm X that I didn't know. Like, his mom was the product of rape. His father loved him and favored him because he was lighter than the other children, but his mother hated Malcolm. Malcolm X's father favored him because he was the lightest of all the children that he had with his wife, and yet his mother hated him because he was the lightest of all the children that she ever had. But you know, he overcame a lot, being a juvenile delinquent, then being a junkie, going to prison, turning his life over to, joining the Nation of Islam, and then making the pilgrimage to Mecca. It was a really good book, and I believe the book was actually published before his, I think it was published before his death, or after his death. It was published before or after his death. But yeah, it was a really good book. So yeah, those are my top 10 favorite novels between 9th and 10th grade. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.